Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Pat, will you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning, everyone. City of Avondale, Harold Seguina.
Here.
City of Buckeye, Javier Stevich.
Present.
City of Chandler, Ryan Peters.
Present.
City of El Mirage, Amber Wakeman.
Present.
Town of Fountain Hills, Dave Trimble.
Here.
Town of Gilbert, Mary Goodman.
Here.
City of Glendale, Kevin Phelps.
Here.
City of Goodyear, Kenny Knudsen.
Here.
Maricopa County, Jason Matthews. City of Mesa, Jody Sorrell. Here. City of Peoria, Chris Hallett. City of Phoenix, Mario Paniagua.
Here.
Town of Queen Creek, Shay Yoakum.
Present.
City of Scottsdale, Nathan Dome.
Here.
City of Surprise, Tracy Montgomery. Here. City of Tempe, Rosa Inchausti. Present. And City of Tolleson, Reyes Medrano. Chair, we're ready to proceed.
All right, thank you, Pat. Just a reminder, all meeting attendees, please mute your computer, microphone, or phone unless you're asking a question. If a committee member would like to ask a question or make a comment during the meeting, you can also type your comment in the box and it'll be read aloud and answered. Item 1, public comment. Public will be provided an opportunity at this time to address the committees on non-agenda items and all action agenda items for the joint, the RPTA, and the Valley Metro Rail meeting agendas. Up to 3 minutes will be provided per speaker unless I allow more at my discretion. A total of 15 minutes for all speakers will be provided. Are there any public comment cards?
No, sir, not today.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to Jessica Mefford-Miller on the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. We have a rather full agenda today, so I want to provide you with just a couple of brief updates on performance that I think are of interest to the committees. First is on paratransit. We have been working very closely with MTM, our paratransit operator, as well as MJM, our paratransit broker, to drive increases in productivity for our paratransit service across the region. We have seen a zero vacancy rate in MTM. Part of the challenge at the beginning of their contract was a workforce shortage. We have worked together to mitigate that. And as a result, we're seeing a decrease in overflow trips. Our target in our contract is less than 5% of trips go from MTM to overflow providers. And in the month of May, we were at 3.3%, which was an improvement over the numbers we achieved in the month of April. And because of that, as well as other strategies, including increasing the number of subscription trips that we're providing, also we've begun experimenting in the city of Mesa by hosting vans in specific zones, and then they would respond to demand responsive trips within that area. We have seen a reduced trip cost by 6.2%, and that equates to about $5 per trip. So these are big dollars that we're talking about. We are going to continue working to try to achieve savings and performance improvements in paratransit service. In the month of August, you're going to see an item before the committees and the board, and that would be to purchase new software for all of our demand responsive service dispatch. And we're hopeful that new tools will also allow us to further increase our service performance and productivity. Slide, please. On the Valley Metro Rail side of things, today we're actually going to talk about results of the runtime reduction and collision reduction study. But I wanted to share with you, our transportation team has been working very closely with the cities of Mesa, Tempe, and Phoenix to try and achieve some immediate improvements in signal timing and thereby runtime. I'll show you a couple of slides. The data here, by the way, on the x-axis, it is month and day, not year. So looking at November 2024 through March 2nd of 2025, we were experiencing really negative on-time performance, and on-time is that green arrow. We want that number to be high. The data points are the number of time points, and it's been trending in the wrong direction. Some of it's construction related, not all of it though. A lot of it is signal related. The trains are getting stuck in signal delays, especially where we have a high density of traffic signals. So we've been working on a couple of hot spots, and kudos to the city of Phoenix in particular, and the rail transportation team led by Mike Powell and Chris Ramirez for working on this. Next slide. Because we have achieved in relatively short time from March through last week an improvement in on-time performance by 20%. So we're working on continuing traffic flow. So this is also actually good for our pedestrians and our motorists, as well as moving our light rail vehicles faster. So now we're working to expand that to some of our other corridors. Again, this is the lower hanging fruit of signal timing, that kind of middle and higher ground we're going to talk about here in a moment. But I wanted to share this with you. This has been a great concern of ours, especially as we increase the throughput of trains in downtown with the introduction of South Central Extension on this Saturday. So well done, transportation team, and thank you, City of Phoenix, for that partnership. Speaking of Saturday, it's a big day. At last, we will open the South Central Extension and Downtown Hub. We look forward to celebrating with the community with whom we built this project and for whom we built this project. So 5.5 miles, 8 stations. I wanted to share the run of show with you. We're encouraging our visitors to begin arriving as early as 7:45 on Saturday morning. It's warm in Phoenix in June, and so this event begins on the earlier side. We will have a procession, including a lowrider parade and a light rail vehicle traveling south along Central to our new terminal station at Central and Baseline. They'll arrive at about 8:30, and then we'll begin a formal speaking program at Central and Baseline at 8:30 a.m. We expect to wrap that and actually cut the ribbon on this incredible project at 9:15 a.m. Then our public is invited to join us on the inaugural trips aboard Valley Metro. We'll also have commemorative copper cards celebrating this day and providing fare for that first day to our guests who join us for the opening celebration. We'll have festivities at Central and Baseline, as well as at Baseline and Broadway at the Ed Pastor Transit Center and at the Downtown Hub in downtown Phoenix. So this will be a rolling party, quite the celebration. We do hope you'll join us. I thank Valley Metro staff and City of Phoenix staff who are supporting this expansive event over the course of a half of a day on this Saturday. So congratulations to City of Phoenix on this incredible milestone project. That concludes my report. Are there, calendar, right? We're not quite done with the fiscal year, are we? We'll be back in this room tomorrow for the Audit Finance Subcommittee. And please do note that our Board of Directors meeting is next week, June 12th. We've moved that up a week, commemorating June 19th as the Juneteenth holiday on which our board meeting would normally follow. Our next meeting for TMC RMC will be Wednesday, August 6th, and Audit Finance Subcommittee Thursday, August 7th, and then August 28th is our Board of Directors meeting. We'll also have a study session as requested by the board at the August 28th meeting focused on community engagement. Just as a reminder to our member communities, expressions of interest in board leadership positions are due this Friday at 5 p.m. The board packet will go out Monday, allowing time for us to include all of those expressions of interest in the packet for consideration for the board. Did I get that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay, that concludes my report now. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, thank you, Jessica. It's really exciting news this weekend, and congratulations to everyone who was involved in this landmark project. I'll move on to the consent agenda as presented for action. Please note that item number 3D is being pulled from consideration today. Are there any questions from the committee on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I request a motion and a second to approve items 3A through 3C.
Andy Knutson, so moved.
Second.
All right, we moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, fiscal year 2026 IT hardware and maintenance reauthorization. Jessica Method-Miller, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Items 4 and 5 typically come to the board every June. This is reauthorization for, one is for hardware, one is for software and software services. for IT department over the course of the fiscal year. We have found it easier to group those items together in one reauthorization rather than bringing each individual software or hardware purchase to you over the course of the year. So this is items 4 and 5. And to address these, as well as 6, that's our software subscription and maintenance reauthorization. So for items 4, 5, and 6, I'm going to invite our interim IT director, Matus Smolsek, to the podium to provide you with a brief presentation. I want to thank Matus as well for agreeing to serve as our interim IT director. Philip Oslin, our CIO, departed Valley Metro this past Friday, was his last day. He and his family have since relocated to Minnesota. So Matus, would you walk us through?
Good morning, Chair Peters and members of the committee. I'm going to be presenting on the 3 items Jessica just introduced. They are reauthorizations for hardware, software, and professional services that we have. So we're going to start out with IT hardware and maintenance. I got it. The authorizations to continue purchase of IT hardware and maintenance agreements. We're requesting continued procurement of key hardware and support, including networking, security, and end user devices like laptops and phones. Thanks to major upgrades completed this year, we're actually projecting a 25% decrease in cost. So that should save us a bunch of money. We recommend authorizing the CEO to proceed with a not to exceed amount of $1,376,900, including contingency. Next, we continue on with.
We'll pause just a moment
sorry.
and go back one
Questions?
slide because we need to take action on each of these individually.
Are there any questions on this item? Yes, seeing none, I request a motion and a second to approve item 4.
Don't everybody go at the same time. I'll make a motion to forward item 4 to the Board of Directors.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 5.
Thank you very much. Next up is going to be the IT professional services. This covers support for ADA audits, audiovisual maintenance, managed print, and technical consulting services. Costs are projected to rise by 44%, mainly due to replacing aging systems and the pricing tier increase with our managed service provider. We recommend proceeding with a not to exceed amount of $1,077,600, including the contingency. Have any questions?
Are there any questions on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion and a second on item 5.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 6, please proceed.
And last but not least, software subscriptions. We're also requesting a continued funding for 33 agency-wide software tools. The projected increase of 32% is driven by major tri-annual renewals, contract escalations, and some expanded Oracle functionality. We recommend authorizing these renewals at a not to exceed amount of $5,996,300 over the next 3 years, including contingency. Have any questions?
Are there any questions on item 6? We have one question.
Chair, I do have a question. This is Mary Goodman from Gilbert.
All right, Mary, I have Mario first and then you next.
Oh, go ahead.
I apologize. I was just pointing to the screen.
Okay. All right, you are next, Mary. Please proceed.
Thank you. I just wondered if staff could provide, given that we are seeing increases in these 3 different agenda items, I have confidence in the items that are being presented. I'm familiar with some of the different softwares as we use them locally within the town of Gilbert as well, but wondered if staff could offer some perspective on how you approach renewals and what sort of competitive process these go through, just as we get ready to refer these items to the board to be able to share some of that with our respective board members.
Thank you for your question, Mary, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'll begin and then I'll pass it over to Maida. So of the 3 items, we have hardware, we have professional services, and then we have software and software as a service. 2 of the 3 items are increasing. The hardware expenditure is actually decreasing. And Maida, so in your preview, perhaps you could identify those software packages that this year have a triennial renewal. On many of our software and software as a service subscriptions, we typically have a 3-year contract. And so every 3 years, those are higher than the off years. So beyond that, Maida, perhaps you could elaborate.
Yes, that is correct.
Business decision process.
The triennial renewals are the Cisco Collaboration Flex Plan, which is basically our telecommunications suite. We have had a 3-year contract with them, which has expired. And so we are seeking another 3 years. The reason why we are looking at 3 years is, and this is an upfront cost, is because it will save us the most money. It will basically, there is not going to be any price increase over the last year, over the last set of years. So the other piece of software that is also the 3-year is Eleveo. Eleveo is used by customer service as well as other groups. It is a telephony software that records all of the conversations for evaluation as well as auditing. So this represents 64% of the 32% increase projected for FY26.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What I am seeking is perhaps some clarification in the background documentation. It's clear and it's referenced that often it appears that some of these contracts are utilizing co-ops to be able to secure best pricing, which is a strategy that's used by several cities and towns across the valley. But I wasn't sure if there was any methodology that you have or any information that you could share of when Valley Metro would make a decision to individually procure and issue an RFP or whatever it might be for either software as a service, hardware, any of those solutions? Or are you always using co-ops?
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that question, Ms. Goodman. We're not always using co-ops. And in fact, a number of the softwares that we are purchasing that are listed here are not purchased off member city co-ops like our Trapeze Enterprise Asset Management. I'll use as an example. This is a transit-specific enterprise asset management software that supports our transit asset maintenance program. And so we typically conduct competitive procurements for those software tools at the beginning of their life with us. And then at each opportunity to renew or not renew, we make a business decision to determine whether or not that tool continues to meet our needs. And from time to time, we do sunset tools, either discontinuing the function or replacing them with a new tool. For example, at the end of this fiscal year, we are sunsetting our business intelligence tool Tableau and replacing that with Microsoft BI. This will impact our member cities' access to Tableau, and we'll work with you to transition to Microsoft BI. And we're doing that because of improved functionality and lower cost. Does that give you an example of, I know there are a number of packages here, but we follow this framework or business decision-making process for each of these packages individually, and then we use this annual mechanism to reauthorize them. But before they enter this reauthorization pipeline, they have been presented to this board and procured separately.
Thank you. That does help. And we about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, made a similar transition from Tableau to Power BI and have seen the increased functionality. So I hope the same follows for Valley Metro. Just from my perspective, I do think that it would be helpful for the board to understand the process that each of these go through when they're competitively bid, when you use a co-op, just because of the volume of the contracts that we're kind of offering that pre-authorization for spend for. I didn't see some of that in the documentation. I certainly could have missed it, but perhaps just highlighting it in staff presentation to the board, I think would be helpful.
Thank you. We have time actually to incorporate that into the memos for the board as well as the presentation for next week. Thank you for that feedback.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. I see another hand up from Matthew Dudley. You have a question?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Matus, I don't know if this is something you can answer or maybe something regarding procurement, but I noticed like we have some software like Microsoft, Cisco, they have the multi-year agreements that, obviously provide those better rates, but we have some of those systems in those, in the single-use authorization, like the Adobe Suite, Trapeze, I know the answer for this one, but we also have the CAS system. Has Valley Metro really analyzed maybe some of the cost savings we could get from maybe negotiating some multi-year agreements on some of these single-year authorizations? And I don't know if it's maybe because of the cooperative vehicle that Valley Metro is using, but I'm just trying to think for like with our ongoing budget pressures and the fact that these are some really good, like of the core operational systems that pretty much are unlikely to change. Maybe we should be leveraging our buying power and maybe getting some better rates instead of maybe going with some single year authorization.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Dudley, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We do pursue multi-year authorizations where there is a financial benefit and where we anticipate continued business need. And that's why in today's presentation, you'll see noted in your packet several softwares that are reauthorization of rolling contract windows. So often these are multi-year agreements.
Do you
Anything to add on
think
that,
we can
Nathan?
get something maybe with, I'm specifically looking like at Adobe Suite, given that's an ongoing something, or maybe the CAS system, if that's something that could maybe get a better ongoing rate. If
So
not, maybe you guys are actually getting the best rate, but it's one of those things that just kind of popped up in our research.
Thank you for that feedback. What might be helpful is that we could indicate which software, what the terms are of the softwares. That's not present here in the current paper, so that you can see that most of these are actually multi-year agreements.
All right, no, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion for item number 6.
I'd move to approve, Mr. Chair.
I second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item 7, travel and expenditures report. Are there any questions from the committee on this item? Seeing none. Item 8, report on current events and suggested future agenda items. Does anyone on the committee have either of these? All right, seeing none. Next meeting of the TMC RMC is scheduled for Wednesday, August 6th at 2025 at 11 a.m. Everyone enjoy your summer break.
I have one item, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Okay. I guess I've not adjourned yet.
I should have included this in my comments at the top of our conversation today. I want to thank you, Chair Peters and Vice Chair Sorrell, for your leadership of our respective committees over the course of the last year. This is our last meeting of the fiscal year, and with the election of new board officers that will happen next week, we'll see a new slate of committee members here, probably familiar faces, but nonetheless, we'll go through a little bit of rearranging of the chairs. We appreciate your leadership. This has been an incredibly busy and productive year at Valley Metro. So we always appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the honor of serving as chair and working closely with you and the rest of the staff and all the work you do and getting firsthand seats at the professionalism that you guys exude. So thank you very much for making this job easy. With that, I will now adjourn the meeting.
Okay. I will call to order the June meeting of the Rail Management Committee meeting, Rail Management Committee. What's on? That's on. That's on. That's on? Yeah. Okay. I've been doing it wrong then. This is why you don't give me a microphone. The minutes from the May 7th RMC meeting are presented for approval. Does anybody have any questions or edits to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Item number 2, light rail vehicle electric repair contract amendment. Jessica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of Rail Management Committee. The item before you is a request to exercise an option. This is one of our available extensions on our contract with Integrated Power Services and Sherwood Electromotion for light rail repair. This is, I believe, a 2-year agreement, and we have a brief presentation from, I don't know if it's Mr. Curry or Mr. Rosenberg, who is providing this update today. Mr. Rosenberg, would you walk us through this item and provide the committee with an overview of the work being done on the traction motors and filters here?
Yes, ma'am. So this item before you is for electrical repairs. It is not an overhaul program, but strictly an as-needed contract we have with these two companies. So when we did this 3 years ago now that it's coming up for renewal, we go through an extensive process to qualify these companies to be able to make these repairs because they are mission critical sort of components that are on here. So we did that with them, and we do have a 2-year option in that. And we kind of give you a picture here of some of the items that they repair for us, mainly anything that has to be wound. So what we're asking is that we forward to the board the ability to enter that 2-year extension for this contract. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, Rob? Seeing none, do we have a motion or a second to forward this item to the board?
Move approval.
I second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, so moving that forward. Item number 3, purchase of 3 light rail vehicles contract award.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this item, though Mr. Curry, Mr. Kessler are on deck to answer questions as needed. We have expanded our rail fleet over the years, always corresponding with an expansion of service. Over the course of this time, we've also increased our end-to-end runtime and slowed service down just a little. Of course, we are working diligently to try to bring that back to a quicker pace of travel. We do not anticipate, though, that speeding up LRV travel at this point is going to reduce our requirement for vehicles. In fact, we have found that in order to sustain the 12-minute frequencies that we are delighted to be implementing across light rail and streetcar this Saturday to support our State of Good Repair program. And by the way, our original light rail vehicles are at midlife. And so right now they're undergoing midlife overhauls. That is a multi-year endeavor. And then to maintain also the special event and additional trains that we slide in periodically to support passenger demand, we need to increase the fleet by 2 vehicles. We also have a need to replace a light rail vehicle that was totaled in 2021 as the result of a collision. So we have worked with our member cities, with their federal funding partners to identify revenue streams that could support the purchase of additional light rail vehicles. We have also worked within our industry to secure a contract mechanism that would allow us to purchase what is a relatively small subfleet of 3 vehicles. We were fortunate to find a piggyback option on Orange County Transit Authority's contract. They too are expanding service and have an opening happening this year. However, they were not purchasing the full scope of vehicles in their contract. I do want to be clear that we have purchased the full scope of vehicles included in our current contract with Siemens for the Capital Extension or for the South Central Extension Corridor. And so with a Siemens piggyback opportunity that we're presenting to this committee and to the board next week, we do have the contractual opportunity to purchase 3 light rail vehicles of the same specification to the Siemens cars that we've received for South Central Extension and that we're putting into service effective on Saturday. This allows us to avoid a request for procurement process, which puts that out in time considerably. So we have before you a request. Next slide, please. Thank you. A request to advance to the board based on an estimate from Siemens. We do expect a firm quote to be received within the next week of a not to exceed amount of $28,428,000 for the purchase of 3 S700 articulated low floor light rail vehicles from Siemens. May I answer any questions?
No questions. No, seeing no questions, do we have a motion and second to move this item forward to the board of directors?
Move approval of the recommendation as Jessica just outlined it. I think that amount is slightly different than what's in the report. So I just want to clarify that we're my motion is to approve at the 28,428,000 level.
Madam Chair, I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There's none, so this item will move forward to the board. Item number 4, rail collision reduction and travel time optimization study.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I want to invite Scott Miller of HDR to the podium to provide a presentation. HDR, together with YTK Engineering, have delivered professional services on this effort. We jointly focused work on preventing rail collisions and improving our runtime because we know that signals, as well as how we sign intersections and interact with other modes in the roadway, impact how often we have collisions and how slow we run. So our goal really is to develop a multi-phase plan for reducing our rail collisions. We've already made great progress in the last year at reducing collisions since they really hit a spike in calendar year 2023. As I shared earlier today, we've begun to make some improvement in our rail system runtime. So now, Scott, I'd like you to walk through members of the committee with some of our findings and where we're heading into the future.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Regional Management Committee for allowing us to do this presentation. Before I start into the presentation, I do want to just thank each of the cities, Mesa, Tempe, and Phoenix. The staff and the traffic engineering groups were very cooperative. They made time to meet with us when we needed that time, and they also provided an immense amount of data to help us with this study. So a lot of appreciation goes to that staff. So I don't know if I'm getting this to work. There we go. Thank you. So I want to start off with just a study overview and study objectives. So the purpose of this study was to look at the causes of rail collisions, which include both streetcar and light rail, and to try to identify strategies to reduce those. We also specifically looked at traffic signal timing plans because we want to identify the relationship between traffic signal timing plan and the movement of trains, pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicles through intersections to try to optimize service for everyone. So to start off the project, we first looked at sort of a pattern of collisions that we saw occurring on light rail. What you see on this bar chart is from roughly 2015 to 2022, you saw a relatively steady pattern of collisions year by year. In 2023, though, there was a spike. And Valley Metro operations staff implemented enhanced training for operations, also implemented a slow zone on North 19th Avenue. And you can see from 2023 to 2024, the impacts of and benefits of that additional training and operations adjustments. What we're seeing now, though, in 2025 is we're starting to see a tick up in collisions, and we're looking at some of the reduction strategies that we have in this presentation to help offset some of that. Key to note is that in looking at all that data from 2016 through 2025, the number one cause of a collision with a light rail vehicle is a motor vehicle turning left in front of the light rail vehicles.
The question.
Yes.
Scott, on that chart that's showing the collision types and the proportion, is that pretty much the same each year? Or do you see the left turns go up and down very much each year?
Pretty much each year I shouldn't say pretty much each year, the number one violation is that left turn violation in front of vehicles.
And is the proportion of each of those types pretty consistent?
It's pretty close. I think we see a pattern of pedestrian activity going up and down. It's probably the one that I think varies the most from year to year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we have a very large light rail corridor to study. So what we did was we focused on 5 specific hot zone areas. I do want to make a point, though, that even though we did focus on these 5 hotspot zone areas, we do have recommendations in our final report that addresses some of the high incident areas that are outside of those 5 hotspots. So it wasn't just isolated to these areas, just where we put the primary work into it. So a quick overview of these 5 segments. If you take these 5 segments in total, they represent nearly 60% of all collisions within the light rail corridor. I do want to point out, though, when you normalize this data by length of those hotspot segments, it's actually fairly even in terms of the number of incidents that occur per rail mile. Because when you look at that, you might see like on the low end, you see a 6% in downtown Mesa and 4% in the Phoenix North segment. Those segments are really small segments, and so that's why there's a lower percentage of incidents in those areas. Okay, so as part of our study, when we kicked off the study, we looked at a lot of rail collision data, we looked at signal timing plans, and then we actually sent staff out into the system, rode the system, watched traffic operations, watched light rail operations, and also we coordinated with the city staff from each of the 3 cities to get their input on their observations of what they see in the field as well. So some big takeaways from that review is that we do know that within the system now that LRT signal timing, that light rail prioritization is not activated in all sections. Sections of the system where it is, sections where it's not. We also know that from this, there are adjustments, not just for light rail activation, but for other transit signal or traffic signal changes that are required throughout the system. We also looked at other elements like infrastructure and light rail operations itself. From an infrastructure perspective, we noticed that there are some train detection issues in the system where when the train is approaching the intersection, it's not being properly detected and the train approaching signs aren't coming on. We also noticed elements with sort of we call them refresh and repair maintenance items. Things like guideway curbs that were struck by a vehicle and the guideway curbs are damaged. Areas where the paint in the intersection is faded and it's difficult for cars to track through or pedestrians to track through. And then in terms of light rail operations, generally what we just noted was that just depending on the operator or the situation at the moment, that sometimes there's some inconsistency between dwell time, speed in segments, and other operations elements. Okay, so part of that operations review did look at on-time performance, and this tees off of what CEO Mefra Miller presented at the beginning of the committee presentation. What you see in here, I'll just go through this really briefly. The gold color represents the number or the percentage of trips, essentially in the month of October 2024, percentage of trips that are late. The pink represents the percentage of trips that leave a station early. And the green represents the on-time performance. And what you'll see, we're only going to show one direction here. And if you look at the screen from your left, that's the first stop at Gilbert Road in Mesa. And all the way to the right is pulling into the Metro Parkway station in Phoenix. But what you see as the system progresses to about roughly downtown Phoenix, that's where trains start becoming more late. And as you go through North Central, 19th Avenue, you see that there's generally that they're trying to hold that on-time performance with some ups and downs occurring. But what the work that Valley Metro has already done towards trying to improve this on-time performance is phenomenal, because the 3 charts that Jessica showed were pretty impressive on just working with schedules, working with signal groups in the cities, what you can achieve by that work and reducing the late service. So we do want to talk a little bit about the benefits, though, of on-time performance and increased operation speeds. So what Valley Metro looked at was 2 different scenarios. If we could reduce end-to-end travel time from either 5% total reduction in time savings or 10%, you can see on the screen the values that provides. So about $1.9 million with a 5% reduction in travel time. That's a $1.9 million annual operation savings. And if we were able to do a 10% reduction in the overall travel time, that could produce about a $3.9 million annual operating savings. But the benefits are also to the rail vehicles as well. So you just saw in the previous presentation, there's additional rail vehicles coming along for an approximate cost of about $8 million. If in the future we don't have to buy additional vehicles to maintain the existing service, that could support using those vehicles for other elements like filling in gaps within the service day, special events, and other resources. Next couple of slides, we're just going to build on those operational benefits that we see, as well as safety benefits from the recommendations that we have on our final report. And then we'll jump into a broad overview of the recommendations and then some detailed examples of the recommendations. I'm only going to talk about the last bullet point on this slide because we already talked about the first 2. One of the main reasons to improve on-time performance and reduce the overall operating time on the line is that enhanced rider experience. We know that the faster we can get those trains moving in a safe manner, we'll obviously improve their experience, but gain ridership as well. In terms of safety, I think this is pretty obvious. Fewer collisions and fewer delays also do impact the way we operate the service. It also reduces our legal and financial responsibilities or exposure to it. And then it also provides for a safer multimodal corridor. So we didn't just look at left turn vehicles in front of light rail. We looked at how pedestrians could be impacted, how bicyclists could be impacted, how we can improve the overall safety and mobility of the corridor. Okay. So this is a general overview slide of our recommendations. This will be followed by 4 slides of some specific action items that could be accomplished in all 3 rail cities. So overall, though, one of the things that we saw with looking at the signal timing plans within the individual cities, the activation or deactivation of communications between train and the traffic signals, was that we do believe that if there was a Valley Metro traffic signal engineer that was on staff that could work directly with city staff to at least identify those situations, make them aware. Some things might be able to be easily fixed and some changes might need to take time. But we believe that that is a position that is warranted. We also know that that training can be very effective. There needs to be an emphasis on operations training, on trying to reduce speed and maintain more consistency through the system. I think it's a great example of what Valley Metro did after 2023. And they did enhanced operations training, and they saw a marked reduction in the number of collisions on the corridor. And then lastly, and this will go more towards the next 4 slides we look at, there are some very specific recommendations about signage consistency, some refresh repair items, and then also some improvements that can be made at specific intersections to potentially improve safety. So the first 3 of these slides are all about collision reduction. And so specifically reducing left turn collisions. So right now, the sign that we have at major intersections where light rail is approaching is the sign you see on the bottom. It's this train approaching LED sign. I think everybody's familiar with that. What other cities have been transitioning to is a dual purpose sign. So what the sign does is as the train is approaching, it flashes the yellow train, and then it also flashes the no left turn. So this is a very specific warning to drivers that if the train is approaching, and the reason why you need to pay attention to the sign is you should not be taking a left turn here. So we've seen that that is effective. We have some specific locations on there. This is not the full list. We just wanted to give some examples of where this action item could be effective. In terms of reducing collisions, just in general, there are some items that I mentioned earlier about refreshing paint. You can see this intersection here that the crosswalk is barely visible. This was a photo taken in December, so it's a fairly recent photo of what's on the street. But these range from fixing curbs to changing signs, also fixing things like the pavement markings within the actual intersection that help guide vehicles through the intersection. Okay. And the last one on collision reduction is some measures for pedestrian and bicycle safety. I know that you saw on that 2016 to 2025 slide that there were only 40 pedestrian incidents that occurred in there. When I say only, it sounds like a small number compared to the rest, but we know that a pedestrian incident either results in the potential for potentially death or even just high injury. So they're very important. So in general, some of them are just adding high visibility crosswalks, so it's really clear to motorists where those intersections are. Other elements include refreshing bike lanes or making those bike lanes very evident, because we did notice in some cases vehicles operating in bike lanes in certain locations. And also changing the radius of curves so that it makes it, it causes drivers making right turns to have to slow down more to make that right turn, which then makes it safer for pedestrians crossing the street. Now, the last slide we have on specific recommendations revolve around travel time optimization. So we looked at every intersection in those 5 hotspot segments that we showed on the screen earlier. And we looked at the traffic signal timing plans for every single intersection. We tried to identify where there were some opportunities for adjustments. So we have recommendations for all 3 cities. What you see up here are just a few. Some of them are very specific to adjusting the cycle length within the traffic signal so that it matches with a segment of the rail system further down upstream from where it's that location. We also recommended, in some cases, turning on peer-to-peer communications, because there are some signals within the system that aren't talking to each other that could allow for improvement in moving not only trains, but motor vehicles through the system. So this slide is just to show the complexity of traffic signal timing. Probably everyone in this room probably is aware of this, but we understand that this isn't something that you can just easily turn on a switch, turn off a switch, or add a value into a traffic signal timing plan. That really has to be looked at as what's the downstream and upstream effects of making changes, because we did focus on our recommendations on not just looking at moving trains faster, but also looking at how it improves overall traffic mobility. Okay, so I'll close this slide with just some high-level remarks about funding strategy and immediate next steps that could be done. So as we had shown on the operations benefits slide, if we were able to improve operations, there is some savings from that, actual real value savings that could be reinvested into some of the recommendations that we're proposing in the report. Also, we suggest that align these recommendations with other street projects that might be going on in each individual city. So take advantage of those economies of scale. These projects don't necessarily have to be standalone projects. They can be incorporated into other projects. And then lastly, Valley Metro desires to aggressively pursue, working with the cities, grant opportunities to help make some of these action items be implemented earlier than later. And then from a next steps perspective, I think these are like like we said earlier, some of the low-hanging fruit that are actionable soon. Addressing the refresh and repair recommendations, so like the striping, those curbs out there that need to be repaired. Also, implementing the enhanced operator travel time performance training. I think we saw that already be effective with Valley Metro, and enhancing that more can provide benefits, we believe. And then lastly, just a couple of the items is really working with the schedules. Jessica already showed that Valley Metro is already working on the schedules to improve on-time performance, but that improves the rider experience, that generates rider, and that helps generate revenue for the system. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's as you look at that chart that you showed, what happens when you get to the heart of Phoenix, it's pretty clear where a lot of those issues are. So I do feel very attacked right now. No, but yeah. So I know some of that, as you mentioned, Jessica, was related to construction, and some of that is just signal optimization that has been improved already. And I know is the work on that continuing? Is there more to come that we expect more improvements on the way with signal optimization as you work with our team?
So in discussion that we've had with all three cities are working on enhancements to signal controllers that are more modern, more contemporary, also working on updating signal timing plans. I think probably the next step would be to prioritize where those may provide benefits to light rail and motor vehicle operations simultaneously. But all three cities have ongoing investments in this area.
And then I know you mentioned a position moving forward potentially is something to think about. But in the meantime, I just want to ask about how will you work with the cities to make sure this continues to be at its optimum, and that we're doing the most we can to keep those on-time performance times.
Yeah, so we're leaning into that collaboration. Historically, it has been one or two members of a rail operations team meeting with a traffic signal engineer from a city on a given intersection. And so through this work, also just through this work in part, honestly, we have improved the working relationships and touch points between Valley Metro, our consultant team, and our member cities. So moving forward, what you're going to see is Mike Powell's team, that's Mike, that's Chris Ramirez, our Deputy Chief of Rail Operations, Jason Gregory, who works with Trevor Collins' team and has some expertise in signals. You'll see them working hand in glove with the cities. There's still not a point person who is monitoring on-time performance and our movement through signals. That's, I think, an ideal state. But we've tackled this together and we've made progress. I think the work and looking at the study daylighting, the actual performance and the data has been helpful because that's our why. Moving through the process has given us a window into how we can do better, and we're not done today. We're committed to continuing to improve it. And we know when we start South Central on Saturday and start pushing more throughput in downtown Phoenix, we're going to be watching signals very closely. And I feel like we have a more mature approach now to actually working together to affect improvement where improvement can be made within the resources, equipment, especially that we all have available. But I think now we're looking together at those upgrade opportunities, tools that we don't possess today, to get us to that next level and also to make it more sustainable. Because right now it is pretty labor intensive and manual to just monitor on an ongoing basis. And this is a system, right? We're moving through intersections in each of our 3 rail cities. And I think the important point, and we've all recognized this, is that what happens upstream or downstream impacts our performance in the neighboring city and the neighboring intersection. So this is always going to be with us. We are never going to check signals off the box, if you will, with a large and expanding street running rail system. And this is it's a high challenge. It's a high priority. We have the benefits of having rail embedded for the community to easily access and to spur economic development. But we've got to constantly care and feed that on-street rail operation and signals.
Glad to see the results that we've had so far. Very impressive. So kudos to you and to your team for your attention and focus on this to make those improvements, and appreciate the ongoing nature of that. Is there anything that we can do as representatives for our cities to help with that, to keep that going?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Mr. Paniagua. I think what we'd like to do is continue from this committee to provide you with high-level updates on where we're at, but in your conversations with your streets departments in particular, and this is really the nexus within your cities between streets and public transit, keeping an eye on those improvements and the work being made. We've made a lot of progress, just making, honestly, in the last year or so, just having this be recognized as a priority and within the cities being elevated above that traffic signal engineer who often isn't empowered to make changes to signal timing. That's been huge progress. So we've got our foot in the door and we need to continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott before he runs away from the podium very quickly? Okay, no, we're good, Scott.
Thank you.
We need to take, this item is presented for information only. Thanks, Scott. Item number 5 has been pulled from consideration for today. Item number 6 is report on current events and suggested future agenda items. Do we have anybody have anything? Okay, so our next meeting, the RMC, will be Wednesday, August 6th at 11 a.m. Thank you.